one of the key questions that is being asked is what's the optimal pace of change in the standard? The goal, setting any goal, any management book will tell you it has to be challenging but achievable. And if it's not challenging, then there's no point. If it's not felt to be achievable, then it's very demotivating. How do we navigate and find that right balance between an advancing standard and avoiding demotivation?
Well, as I think Nicholas mentioned in his keynote, I come from one of the most privileged nations in the world in terms of achieving MSC certification. Where Norway is, generally regarded as one of the top performers in fisheries management. So we've picked all the lowest hanging fruits, and that has taken us up to more than 90% of our volumes MSC certified. But one thing that has changed a lot over the last 5 years is the MSC standard itself. It has raised the bar, and we still haven't caught up to that bar because of the lag and the time difference in implementing new standards. And I'm quite aware that as a client, as a user of the standard, we have some real pains to go through over the upcoming years in fulfilling conditions to meet the standard that we are subject to now. And so I would say that stability should be the main goal of the MSC standard at this point, because even I, as a client from the most privileged fishery nation in the world, even I feel that there are some pains in this process. Now, if I were a developing nation aspiring MSC fishery, I would probably be a lot more frustrated. It could feel like now the rich people have gotten in the program and they're pulling up the ladder behind them.
Mm-hmm. It's an interesting perspective. Amanda?
I think for me it raises the question of what is the change that we're seeking and what is the role of the bar. So if the idea is to bring more fisheries globally into the program in a way that enables continuous improvement, that is one critical and an important area of work. The other part of it is how do you maintain a standard that actually pulls improvement behind it, regardless of whether or not X number of fisheries actually reach certification. And to me, that is the existing tension, is what is the change that is being sought. Rupert talked about the need for a range of program opportunities for participation for a range of fisheries at different levels and in different styles of governance. And on the other hand, a certification implies the ability to control quality and demonstrate governance at a certain level. Mm-hmm. And so I think the question I would have is how do you cater to both of those sets of needs while not allowing the quality of the certification to in any way diminish? And the reality is that with new information and changing oceans, we have to find a way to update the standard and not allow that diminishment to occur.
Ali?
I absolutely agree. I think it does depend on the issue as well. And we have to bear in mind that the MSC has a framework, and underpinned by the FAO framework, which defines how long the standard can take to implement changes as a minimum to allow supply base to come in line with it. That's obviously part of the GSSI benchmarking too, so you have to be compliant with that. So if you're not GSSI benchmarked and found to be compliant, that's a bad thing. But then because you're trying to move things in the standard too quickly. So we'll have to be mindful of that. I just come back to, it's about dialogue. Yeah. It's about engaging all stakeholders and talking through the issue and the challenges that exist so that we can deliver improvement and change in agreed but realistic timescales.
Yeah, so very similar. So from our side, we've been working for more than 20 years to get to a point where more than 90% of the portfolio is certified today. So I think we face the two issues of making sure that our existing suppliers evolve as the standard evolve, and we do believe in evolvement, but also making sure that the suppliers that are not yet certified, that we get them on board. So very similar to what's already been said.
Can I come back?
Of course.
Actually, this whole discussion demonstrates one of the critical tensions, which is that while we would all like to see, and particularly from the NGO world, often people think NGOs would really like to stay unhappy forever, but mostly we'd really like to declare victory and go for cocktails. So, you know, we would really like to sit back and say, this has gone really well and we see great improvements. But the challenge is, in order to actually create a bar that is at the right level, we have to be careful of not allowing anything to just sort of slide. And that means maintaining sometimes that hard line. And so, while I think dialogue is important, I also think the creative tension between how fast can we get it done in order to meet biological or ecological imperatives versus the tension of, well, it would be easier if we slowed it down, or we have all of these other things we have to take into account. That is a fundamental tension that's going to continue to exist. What I think we have to do is not make it about whether it's an NGO or an industry issue, and recognize that the practical realities are we have an ocean that is still degrading, and we want to address that.
That's quite an interesting idea, that this tension is actually a good thing and a necessary thing, rather than something to worry about and be concerned by. It has to be managed, of course, and the dialogue process is the key to that.